program by, for, and about women today with Sandra Elkin.
Good evening and welcome to Woman. Our topic tonight is working class women, a group one of my guests describes as the most voiceless of the silent majority. With me tonight is Nancy Seifer. Nancy was formerly head of the Mayor's Office of Ethnic Affairs in the Lindsay administration in New York City. Nancy Seifer is now director of the Center on Women and American Diversity, sponsored by the American Jewish Committee. She has written a pamphlet that has become a classic in the field, titled Absent from the Majority, Working Class Women in America. She is the author of a book, Nobody Speaks for Me, Self-Portraits of American Working Class Women. Also joining us is Mary Sansoni, founder and executive director of the Congress of Italian American Organizations. Mary is a social worker, she is a working class woman, and has lived in a working class neighborhood in Brooklyn all of her life. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Mary, do you agree with Nancy's statement about working class women being the voiceless part of the silent majority?
I most certainly do. The working class woman has never asserted themselves to speak, because I think one of the reasons is that they have been conditioned to accept whatever is given to them. And I think this is a very sad thing, because they have never actually expressed their true feelings about how they feel. And I think in many cases they have been very, very unhappy.
Do you think the women's movement has had anything to do with this?
Oh, it certainly has. As a matter of fact, I have met lots of women that as a result of the women's movement have been asserting themselves. And I think they're much happier today than they've ever been.
Nancy, one thing in the book, you did talk a lot in your introduction about the silent majority. A lot of people question whether the silent majority in fact exists.
Well, I'm one who feels that it never did exist in fact, but it was a fabrication of the Nixon people as a means of trying to convey the fact that the majority of the people in the country were satisfied with him because they were silent. They didn't voice any disapproval. And of course the election results in 1972 helped that. But my feeling about the silent majority is that it was relatively easy to manufacture, because the notion was easy to manufacture because most people in our society don't have a means of speaking out. The people who write magazine articles and write books and appear on television most of the time and speak to the public are usually middle-class people with college educations. And it's almost as though our communications in this country are a matter of middle-class folks exchanging ideas or opinions and everybody else kind of watching. Most people don't have a vehicle to speak out, so that it was easy to perpetrate the myth of the silent majority.
The term, Mary.
Well, no, to answer you, Nancy, I don't think it was just a question of not having a vehicle. I think in many cases it was cultural.
Yeah, it's
in many cases, I mean, for instance, the Italian woman was taught never to speak out, that the man was a superior being, so consequently she had to accept whatever was given to her and be grateful.
But Italian men in our society usually don't have opportunities to speak out either. Working class people, for the most part, don't. I mean, you're right, it is cultural, but there's also a lack of vehicles for communicating to the society at large, apart from the labor movement, which speaks for a lot of people, but many people are not represented by it.
We've been using the term working class at least 5 or 6 times now we've used it, and that makes some people uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what your definition is.
Well, it's become commonly used now among sociologists, and the definition that is used generally is made up of 3 different elements. One is people who have had a high school education or less, people who have blue-collar or lower-level white-collar jobs, like typists, for example, or clerks. And the third part has to do with income. It's difficult to say what it is now, but in the early 70s it was an income of between $10,000 and $15,000 for a family of 4 in an urban area. And that was pretty much decided by the Labor Department. So it's probably a bit higher now because of inflation, but it's a relatively low income for a family of 4.
Mary just shook her head.
No, because today, according to the poverty levels, the income has gone lower. I don't know if you know about it. But last summer, the poverty prior to 1975, the poverty level was up to $10,500 for a family of 4.
Oh, wow.
Last year went down to $8,000.
Hmm.
Because I know we had problems with getting in neighborhood youth court children. They had to meet the poverty level. And last year's poverty level for a family of 4 was $5,500 to $8,000.
Well, that's
So
much higher than it used to be.
consequently, you know, it's gotten lower.
Well, the point is, I guess, that the working class people, and the definition of working class is that it is not very much above the poverty level, and it seems to be
No, it's
getting
not.
closer
It's
to
getting
it. So that
closer to the poverty level.
these are people who are not eligible for any of the services that the government provides to people who do fall below that income level. And this became a particularly sore point in the 60s when the poverty program was really alive and generating a lot of programs related to education and jobs and training and health and all sorts of things that a lot of working class families just above that level could not provide for themselves. So it seems to be getting even closer now, and
Yeah.
that's
Mary,
interesting.
what do you see as the major problems for working class women in your neighborhood?
Well, the major problem for working class women is conditioning the husband to give them an opportunity to cooperate with them. I know I haven't had that problem, I mean, thank God. And I often say the reason why I didn't have that problem is because my husband married me exactly as I am today. So if he accepted me then, 28 years ago, he's got to accept me today. But I know that the worst problem is trying to get the husbands to cooperate with them, because a working woman has 2 jobs. One is going out to work and the other one is keeping house. And a man doesn't want to know anything about it. She has to come home and cook and clean and, you know, take care of the children. And I think that this is their biggest problem, is getting the husband to cooperate with them so that they can continue going out to work and providing.
Do you know how they solve it?
Well, some have solved it, and some are still struggling. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of women that still come home and have to cook and clean, and I think that eventually they'll speak up, and it's going to be either you accept me, you know, or the heck with you. And I think that this is what's going to happen. And I don't blame them, because it's difficult. A woman works. A lot of women work because they want that feeling of independence, which is very important to a person. And they have contributed at home. I know lots of women that are working because the husband's salary is not substantial enough to provide for the needs. So she goes out to work, she contributes toward the household, but besides that, he insists that she take over the house and cook and clean. And I think this is very difficult, and eventually the woman is going to give him an ultimatum. Either you help me or we're going to have to split.
You better not be around when that happens, Mary. Nancy, what did you want to know, and why did you write the book?
Well, I had been doing some research about working class women at the Institute where I work, and published the pamphlet which you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that it would be much better for everybody if working class women could express in their own words what they felt about their lives, their country, what was important to them, what their concerns were, rather than me, since I come from a different background, speaking for them. And what was happening was, because there was such a dearth of literature or information about working class women, because I had written that pamphlet, I was being called upon to speak to various groups about working class women. And I wanted to, since there was no real vehicle, to create at least a book of 10 women who could tell other people what was important to them, speak for themselves. And I was interested also in finding out, since my experiences were limited primarily to New York and some other visits to some other cities, what was happening in very different parts of the country, like the South, One of the women in the book is from Atlanta, another from Alabama, a rural town in Alabama outside of Birmingham.
Are there huge contrasts between working class women, say, in Mary's neighborhood and Atlanta or Iowa or wherever?
Well, I think the basic concerns are pretty much the same. There are cultural differences, but the basic concerns revolve around the family, around making enough to support the family, preserving neighborhoods or whatever. In some cases it's not relevant, like the woman, Anita Cups from Alabama, lives in a wonderful rural kind of an area where they have a huge piece of land and animals and all sorts of things, and so the neighborhood is clearly not a priority. But the concerns really have to do with making ends meet more than anything else. I think that was the common factor. And then also struggling to help other people in similar situations. But that's probably because of the 10 women that I happened to find and be lucky enough to be able to interview. I don't think that's common of all working class people.
Mary, tell me about your father.
Well, my father was a most interesting person. As I talk about him in the book, he studied to be a priest, left the seminary shortly before he was ordained, came to the United States and lived with some relatives, and later met my mother and married. However, what was so beautiful about my father was that his concern for his family and concern for all mankind, his concern at home was education. He stressed education above anything else. As a matter of fact, he had an expression that he said, even if my family, he would say it in Italian, it sounds better, would eat bread and onions. He said, I don't care, just so long as they go to school, because education was very important. And I think that my father's family, the 5 of us, was the only family in the neighborhood that did in fact go to school. And his concern was to help the underdog, and he worked for the labor movement. And besides that, he wrote for Il Proletario, which was a very liberal newspaper, and he had sort of a little, they call it storefront today, but this used to be a one-room near the newspaper where he would help the illiterates read and write. As a matter of fact, there's hundreds of people that Papa helped. And in the same neighborhood that I was born in Red Hook, as a matter of fact, when he died, people from all over came to visit him.
And that's how you got to be the way you are?
I got to be the way I am because I followed him from the time I was very young. I don't think my mother was too happy with the idea because she felt that what I was doing, my brothers should have been doing. My brother Joe is very much like myself. My brother Jimmy was entirely different, you know. He was more, my brother and I were more idealistic like my father, and my brother Jimmy was an egotist, so therefore...
He's not going to be happy to hear that.
Watching the show.
Therefore, you know, we were kind of two different worlds. But nevertheless, there was always that love and affection, you know, between the 5 of us, even though we were kind of different. But I always enjoyed being with my father. I seemed to enjoy everything he was doing, his love for people. And from the time I was very young, I was always concerned about helping everybody. And this is why I struggled to go to work and go to school. Because when I graduated high school, my father took 6. I went out to work in a factory. I did organization work. And then they sent me to the Rand School of Social Science, and then I went to the New York School of Social Work because I was interested in working with people. And here I am, I'm still working with people.
Is the thing that you're most proudest of Chow?
What I'm most proud of is having the opportunity and the guts to fight the politicians, to fight the establishment, and dare say, fight the mafia.
Yeah, you had a little go-around
Yes,
with Joe
I
Colombo
did.
at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And even though my husband never agreed to my going and speak to Joe Colombo's people, I'm happy I did because it was a satisfaction.
Well, tell us from the beginning how
Well,
that happened.
I had been called several times by Joe Colombo to speak to his so-called grassroots people. He had the movement called the Italian Civil Rights League. And it seems that Italians from all over the country joined him. And the only reason why they joined him is they knew nothing about Joe Colombo. But there was all this movement of ethnicity, and they wanted to identify with a group that was Italian. And lots of those people knew nothing about Joe Colombo, other than he had the civil rights movement, and it's about time, you know, we got out and did something too to defend our people. Well, he knew I had been working with Chow, and I was in the process of developing daycare centers, you know, and senior centers, which was being done from my basement, incidentally. And he became very interested in wanting me. I think what his motive was that he wanted, he needed credibility. So he felt, here I'm getting the credibility. Now, if I join him, you know, he can use me. And I sensed this. So he insisted several times. He called me and asked me to go speak at his Italian Day, you know, so-called in June. And each time I refused. So one day he insisted that I speak at a meeting at the Park Sheraton Hotel in New York. So I didn't know whether I should go or not, and I have two very good friends, Ralph Salerno and Nick Pileggi. So I figured before I go, let me consult them. And they both agreed that I should go. So.
Did they go with you?
No, they didn't go. It was my head. It was my head. But nevertheless, I was glad that they did, so I went. And my young daughter came with me because she had a car. My husband refused to come because he didn't want to have any part of it. And my daughter Camilla, who was going to college, Brooklyn College at the time, and you know, that liberal anti-war demonstration and everything, she said, I'll drive you. She came there. And it was a very interesting meeting. Of course, I wasn't frightened until the day after. I realized what could have happened. And thank God it didn't happen.
You could not be here now.
No, I guess not. But nevertheless, as I mentioned, you know, I was happy because I was satisfied because there were a lot of people there that night that heard me speak and that realized what was really taking place. And as a result of my being there, they quit. They left the Civil Rights League. And I have met a lot of these people. I think you were at a meeting one night when a man came over to me. He said, I saw you. He said, you stood 8 feet tall.
Yeah, he was 4'6".
And I actually, you know, they were asking me questions, and Joe Colombo at one point said, Mr. Sansoni, he said, if you really respect the Italians, you would join us against Ralph Salerno. And I said, well, I didn't come here to discuss. I said, whatever your name is. Now, I knew what his name was. I said, I didn't come here to discuss Ralph Salerno. However, if you'd like to discuss him, I'll give you his name, his phone number, you can call him, and invite him.
Do you know who he is, by the way? He is
Yes,
he was a major racketeer investigator.
Right.
Well,
Your feeling, Mary, is that the neighborhood people don't need the politicians, they just need each other?
by all means, there's no question about it. The politicians have never helped me. The Italian politicians have never helped me.
Is it mostly women who work in Chow now?
No, we have a lot of men. As a matter of fact, my board is made up mainly of men. As a matter of fact, they were all men and myself. Now we have a few more women.
Well, now
coming
you're
in.
a very well-established, powerful organization, right?
Yes, we are.
But it wasn't always that way.
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, we started from my basement. And when we started, you know, the Italians are not geared towards social services. So we started with the idea of uniting the Italians, but I knew that was a human impossibility. And I had no intentions of uniting the Italians. My idea was to get a group behind me and start doing exactly what we're doing today, which is social services.
And you have senior citizen centers
Oh, we have senior citizens,
and daycare?
daycare, we have after-school programs, we have
Summer programs?
summer program, we have community services. We have 4 community service storefronts, and we're in the process of opening up a center for preventive services for children. And we have, altogether, we have 19 programs.
Nancy, do you think that there is much communication between middle-class women and working-class women? I mean, do you
Generally
find
not.
evidence of that?
There generally isn't. In terms of, are you talking about the women's movement? In
Yeah.
terms of the movement? There is so increasingly, because a lot of women who would be defined as middle class, even if simply because they've been to college, who may have come from working class backgrounds, are beginning to work with working class women in certain communities. There's a group in Brooklyn, another part of Brooklyn than Mary's, which is called the National Congress of Neighborhood Women, and it has the potential of becoming national, is now located in Brooklyn, which has no chapters yet, but will eventually hook up with women in other cities, and is beginning to. It started a college for working class women in the community, in a senior citizen center that they helped to build themselves. And the leaders, the organizers, are college-educated women who felt the need to work in these communities and try to help women to have a voice, at least in certain areas. And they've developed a marvelous education program with the help of a local community college. But a lot of it is very innovative. It's been based on what the women wanted to learn and how they wanted to learn. So there are some efforts like that are beginning. And there are organizations of office workers now in cities like San Francisco and Chicago and Boston. There's one called 9 to 5, where again, it's been college-educated women who've provided the leadership, but simply to get it going. Most of the members who've become very active are non-college educated women.
Is health care an issue for the women in your neighborhood?
It certainly is, especially for our seniors in our senior centers. I know that they find it very difficult because of finances.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God in our seniors we have a doctor coming in once a month. But nevertheless, their biggest problem is trying to finance health care. They don't have the money, which is a big problem today.
Well, also, just maneuvering the maze of the system has got to be a problem.
Oh, yes.
And
There's no
knowing
question about
where
it.
to go.
That's one of the things I was referring to before, where working class people kind of fall between the cracks because they very often can't afford regular visits to the doctor, to a private doctor, and they're not eligible for benefits that poorer people are. And it's a major concern for most of the working class women I've met, or women like them in their communities. There just isn't proper health care, especially for women.
We're just hoping, the seniors are just praying with the new administration that maybe they'll pass a health insurance bill, which had been started many years ago. I know that the National Council of Senior Citizens has been introducing the bill year after year with the hopes that something would happen. Our only hope now is that the new administration will do something about it.
When you speak of your seniors, I have to tell you that my vision of an Italian woman is with a shawl and staying home, and I find it very hard to believe that these women are going into a neighborhood senior citizen center.
Not my seniors. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you something. Every once in a while, you know, I get a call from CBS or one of the television groups or radio, you know, asking me to send an Italian senior. And I know exactly what they mean, the stereotype with the black dress and the black shawl. So what I do is I look for the sexiest senior you've ever met, and I'll invariably send her over to the station, you know. And then they call me back and say, well, that isn't what we were looking for. I said, well, that's too bad. We don't have what you're looking for. So
Because they've changed, because the center has changed, right?
They have changed. And as I mentioned, I just wish you would come and see them. Nobody wears a black shawl. Nobody wears a black dress. And they're doing what everybody else is doing. We've had seven marriages in 4 years. And they've taken trips. And a lot of our seniors are having a ball.
Do you think that a neighborhood woman anywhere can do some of the things that you're doing and should?
I think
are you
they
urging
should.
more involvement?
I think they should. I think everybody should. I think these people are looking for somebody to go there and help them get out of the rut they've been in. I know we're in Little Italy, and we've seen women that haven't left their homes for years. And we went to them, we spoke with them, and now they're at our center having a good time. And they look forward to just coming there. And they have a hot meal, which is something they've never had, because when you're alone, you don't want to cook for yourself. So they come and they eat and they have a good time. They dance. They do arts and crafts. They're going to college. We have 2 to college. And last year, 13 of our seniors graduated with a high school equivalency, got a high school equivalency diploma, and 23 of them attended 2 to college.
Nancy, you're really hopeful about the situation after writing the book and meeting these women. You think that there's more hope for
I do.
some of our social problems?
Because I think there is so much going on, and there are so many women who are taking on all sorts of activities and trying to change things in their own communities. And a lot of times we just don't know about it, but I think it's increasing. And I left my experience of interviewing all of them with a great deal of optimism, because just the 10 women in the book, and there are so many like them, who are doing fantastic things to try to solve problems that exist in their lives, or in their neighborhoods, in their workplace, with their families, friends, whatever. And yeah, I am hopeful.
I think the only hope we have is the women. And I have a lot of hope. I'm very optimistic about the Italian women, because I go into the Italian community, you know, and we can get them out and work with us. And I think the thing we have to do is give them an issue that they can work around, and then
Mary,
we can get them out.
I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Thank you both very much for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching, and good night.
This program was produced by WNED-TV, which is solely responsible for its content. Major funding was provided by public television stations. Additional support was provided by unrestricted general program grants from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the Ford Foundation.